Hello and welcome. I am Stacey, your Disney hotel lady, and today I'll be talking with Kim from Neuro Adventures Travel. Thanks for being here, Kim. We're going to discuss neurodivergencies and traveling to Disneyland.
Yes, that's my favorite topic. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited to dive into this conversation.
Great. Well, first off, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your how you got into this niche on social media?
Yeah, so my name is Kim, as you'd mentioned. I've been going to Disneyland for over 40 years. I love Disneyland. It is truly the happiest place on earth and one of my favorite places. I started this about a year ago, and I really wanted to share my experience as a mom of a son with autism and a neurotypical daughter, and how we do Disneyland, and how I think it's something to be shared more broadly, because I think a lot of people feel like, one, Disneyland is impossible, it's overstimulating, it's expensive, all the things. And I wanted to kind of share how we do it and how we kind of go at a slower pace. And it's been a really awesome year. And I've met some really great people and I've been able to help some families. So, yeah, that's really what I wanted. And now I'm kind of branching out outside of Disneyland because there's so much to be shared. I think there's such a gap in this space for neurodivergent travel or traveling with those that really need some additional support. And I want to show what's possible.
That's amazing. I really love it because yes, I do think it can be intimidating, just travel in general, but especially Disneyland for all people, really. So
Yeah.
let's increase the awareness here. So, how did it go for your first visit to Disneyland, and did you see what did you see how to improve on future visits once you were bringing your children?
Yeah. So the first visit was back in 2015. My son was 5 and my daughter was 3. We felt like that was a good time and they were at good ages that we could go to Disneyland. Um, and we were still trying to kind of uncover things with my son. And um, what was really telling during that time was Paint the Night. And that's where I really started noticing some like visual kind of overstimulation for my son. Um, we are kind of like a go slow family. And also during that trip, my sister was there and her kids and my mom. I mean, there was a lot of us. So it took a lot of us and it took a long time to like get into the park. And we took breaks because we had, toddlers with us and a teenager and, excuse me. So we waited for Paint the Night. We were so excited and we had found a place to sit. And right when it started, my son, who was sitting on my lap, actually physically turned around and like fell asleep, like his head kind of like on my chest area. And I was thinking, like, what's going on? I mean, yes, it was late, but the kids had like a really good nap. We had started late, but I think it was really just the overstimulation of, the lights, the music, the people that I thought, okay, something isn't quite right. But, at the time, I didn't really put two and two together because I was also looking at my 3-year-old daughter, like how she was reacting. And, that's really what kind of like started this off with me in terms of, excuse me, that's really what started this off with me in terms of like sensory sensitivities at Disneyland and how I think it's so important to kind of go at a pace that works for your family and making sure that everyone is comfortable. And that's really our first experience. And then we went a few more times before COVID and always again going at our own pace. Like we're not a get up early and rope drop and run from ride to ride. And that's the pace that always kind of works for us. And also really setting those expectations with my whole family during all of our trips of like, we may need to take a break or someone needs to use a bathroom, someone needs a snack, I think also I'm very fortunate and lucky being from California. I live in the Bay Area. It's only an hour flight. We go quite often. So sometimes I think my experience may not be the same as someone that's living like in the Midwest or someone that, doesn't go as often. So I always kind of keep that in the back of my mind of I understand the reasoning behind people like running from ride to ride or only having 2 days in the park and feeling like they want to see everything because they know they're only going to go one time a year.
Mhm. Okay, so based on your experience, then, what kind of more general advice or tips would you give to someone who's considering bringing their neurodivergent child or children for the first time to Disneyland? What should they consider?
Well, first, I think they really need to understand like what it's going to be like for their child in terms of like rides and lights. I always recommend trying to like practice at home first. Maybe they go to like a local fair. Maybe they go to an arcade or something that feels a little bit different or out of the norm that they may sense some like overstimulation. So they can kind of do some checking for themselves and for their child of how is this going to work? Like, there's some changing in lights, there's loud music, there's a lot of people, because those are things that I think are important for you to consider before you go to Disneyland, because those are things that are very present at Disneyland. So my advice always is like start at home, start small, practice going places that are new, that there's going to be some, change in environments and sensories so they can gauge like what it's like for their child. Also, like, I know a lot of fairs in the summer. Like, if you can maybe go to like a local county fair to kind of get a sense of like the rides your child likes, because the one thing that always is sad for me is it's hard to see kids coming off rides like crying, that they were either scared or maybe there was an older sibling that wanted to go on Indiana Jones, but maybe wasn't quite right for the younger sibling and they couldn't be separated. I think it's important to talk about like rider switch with parents. I don't think that's something that's really a lot of people know about, because you don't ever want to scar your child that they have such a negative experience that they're like, I never want to go back to Disneyland again. That was the worst family vacation. So I think it's in practicing and starting small, understanding your child's sensory needs, and also level setting on expectations before going. Maybe you're setting the expectations with your other children of, okay, we may need to separate. Like maybe you need to go on Space Mountain with dad, and I'm going to sit with, your sister waiting and getting a snack, those kinds of things. And I know that's hard because as a family vacation, you want to be together as much as possible. But I think you really need to set those realistic expectations.
Yeah, that sounds like great advice for anyone, not just those
Anyone.
with any sort of sensitivity issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how about let's talk about hotels, and how did you go about picking a hotel that would work for your family?
So we try to stay on property when at all possible. And the reason for that is now that my kids have gotten a little bit older, I usually go with them alone to Disneyland. And for me, for my comfort, for my sense of security and level of anxiety, it makes me feel comfortable staying within the Disney bubble. Now, I know that's not always possible. I think the thing to think of for your child or individual is how they do with transitions. Think about where you're going to stay and the proximity to the parks in terms of if you're going to be staying at the Anaheim Hilton, know that it looks very close on the map, but it's going to be quite a walk before you even get to the front gates. If you know your child is going to have a hard time with that walk, either think of a location that's a little bit closer, staying on property, or potentially taking an Uber. Now, if you have a child that's in a car seat, that's going to be challenging staying far away. You can also take the bus, the ART, for younger children. We like to stay close because of the walking. My son has a hard time with like the stamina to walk long distances. And when you think about this, you already know that like Disneyland is easily going to be a 20,000 step day. I mean, easy. So we pick a location that is easy for us to get to, that is also going to be easy for us to take a break in the middle of the day, because that's also something that we need. We are a slower start in the morning. We usually go through the afternoon, try to have a snack, and go back to the hotel for a mid-afternoon break. And then we go back to have dinner and then stay until park closes. So when it comes to hotels, staying close and easy for us to go back and forth is really important. Now, I know that staying on property is expensive. Sometimes the reservations are challenging. Let me talk about the resort hotels first, and then I'll talk about off property. Our favorite hotel is the Disneyland Hotel. And the reason for that is my kids love the water slides. They love the water slides. If your budget allows and you have some extra time, I love even planning an extra day just to have a rest and a pool day. Like, we love to just stay there by the pool, and then maybe we'll go bowling at Splitsville in the afternoon. We really take advantage of like everything that the resort has to offer, but I know that that can be hard for a lot of people. But there are some really amazing deals out there. If you have the Disney Visa, you're always getting coupons and kind of discount codes for discounts at the hotel. So I would recommend checking into that. Costco sometimes has some really great deals. If you know that this is going to be your annual trip or your big vacation, look into those deals ahead of time.
Can I
we stayed
interrupt real quick just to clarify, if anybody's wondering, Splitsville is the bowling alley in downtown Disney.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
We've stayed at all properties except the new DVC property. The Grand California, we have stayed there. We've also been fortunate enough to do club level, which is amazing. That's very nice. My kids prefer the pool at the Disneyland Hotel versus the Grand California, but the rooms are pretty comparable. The one plus about staying at Grand California is like you were right there. You walk out of the hotel and you were right in downtown Disney, and you were right, close to the main gates. Also, going back to the Disneyland Hotel, I'm sorry I didn't mention this before, is we always then take the monorail in and out of the park. Mm-hmm. So that's another reason why we like staying there, because it's just kind of reduces the steps. It's also our like end of the night thing. We love to like stand on the monorail platform, and we see the monorail platform. We see the Matterhorn and then the submarines. Like, I always get a picture of my kids, and now they're so tired of it. And then just last October, my daughter and I, for our mother-daughter trip for Oogie Boogie, we stayed at the new Pixar Place Hotel. So also rooms quite comparable. It is a little bit of a further walk, but I would say not that much further. All the hotels have all restaurants. Again, it's just really nice to have that dining and being inside the bubble. Also to share with parents, if you have a child with a selective eater in your party, you can also order groceries to all of those hotels to be delivered from Walmart, Instacart, DoorDash. So that's always a great way to also save money for like breakfast items, getting bottles of water, snacks, those kinds of things. When it comes to staying off property, as I mentioned, I am most of the time alone with my kids. And so I'm considering my level of anxiety, the walking, and the safety. I think generally when you are inside the Disneyland park, it is very safe. I am not a local to Anaheim, but there are times when I have walked outside and around the perimeter of the park. I maybe haven't always felt the safest. So I'm considering that when I'm walking with my two children alone. Now, when I have gone for solo trips or when I have gone like for meeting friends, I've always stayed off property because it is more economical for me. My favorite hotel, I saw that you just posted something on this, is the Viv. I also think that is an amazing hotel for kids. The rooms are very spacious. I just stayed in a room with 2 queens and a bunk bed, and I didn't use the bunk beds, but really spacious. It is a beautiful hotel. It is very economical. There are restaurants on property. I would say the pool is a little more on the adult side than I would say the kid side. If you were looking for a more economical hotel that's larger, that you have the pool, I would try to go for the Cambria. I have not stayed there, but I have eyed it, when I have driven back and forth, and I think my kids would love it for the like kind of water park atmosphere. And also the Habit is nearby, which is a favorite of my son, Jersey Mike's, there's restaurants nearby. My friend just went a couple of weeks ago, and she went with her adult children that are in college, and they stayed at the Hyatt Orange County, which, I think is considered Garden Grove. They loved it. It's a quick 7-minute Uber ride. It is very easy to get to. They also like the on-site amenities of like Starbucks. There's a brewery. There's places to eat. They love the hotel and would stay there again. Both of those properties are also available and on the line for the art. So if you are worried about like Ubers or car seats, you can get on the bus. When I do stay at the Viv, I take an Uber. It is less than $10, and I think it is less than 10 minutes. I just love that hotel. I think it's beautiful. It's a very safe property. Now, considering properties that are closer within walking distance, I've also stayed at the Grand Legacy. The Grand Legacy, I think, is a great option if you want very quick access across the street. If you have younger kids that you're pushing strollers, that is a great property. However, when making the reservation, I would request to stay in the newer updated towers, which are further to the back of the hotel. When I stayed, I didn't know there was a difference. I stayed in a non-updated room. The room, there is no frills. It is 2 beds, a TV, the bathroom, and that's it. Now, if you are not so into hotels and you were just really concerned about the park and the location, I can't say enough about the Grand Legacy. I have also had friends that swear by the Hojo. I have never stayed there. It is a little bit of a further walk. And I think when you are on Harbor Boulevard, when you kind of walk past that like McDonald's and Panera, it's a little dark in that area. So I would consider what that looks like if you were walking with small children, at the end of the night.
Okay, great. Yeah, a lot of great. You mentioned so many properties that.
I'm sorry that it was very long-winded, but
no, it was great. It's great. I think also to mention the Hyatt that you said your friends stayed at, they have a dedicated bus for their guests that it does cost extra, but so does the art. So if you want to just remove a little bit, I think the art still stops at a couple of hotels, but the Hyatt does have their own dedicated bus that you can pay. It might be a little bit more expensive than the art, but yeah, but I agree. All of those are great suggestions. And yes, we just had a article and video about the Viv, so I can link that in the show notes. And I have an article about how to use the art bus too that I'm hopefully going to be updating next week on my trip. So I also love the art bus. Can link that too in the show notes. Okay, so you covered a little bit about how to save some money and stick to a budget, but let's try and group that all together here. I think you mentioned ordering groceries, staying off-site if that works for your family. Anything else that I'm forgetting or that you didn't get to mention yet?
I would say as it's getting to rainy season, bring your ponchos and your rain gear before you visit the park. All those things are available on property, but you are going to be spending extra money in doing that. I also always bring an extra bag that I pack. I roll up a duffel bag in my luggage for bulky clothes, dirty clothes, souvenirs, if I need extra space. So I think, you know, planning ahead and kind of going through a checklist, and I have a checklist, a packing list that I'd be happy to share, you know, planning ahead for like rainy season, for, extra things that you think you're going to buy, definitely bring those and try to, roll them up in your suitcase. Another thing to mention about like bringing extra items is like renting a locker so you're not going back and forth to your hotel. At Disneyland, there is only lockers on Main Street. There are a couple of different locations at California Adventure for lockers, but getting that locker secured early in the day is really important, especially if you're dressing in layers and now this time of year, it's important. So I know that's not so much money savings. I guess it could be because you're not wasting money going back and forth to the hotel. But again, it's like just being conscious of like the things that you're going to need in the park before you're there.
Mm-hmm. Can you remind, it's been a while since I rented a locker, but can you remind us of the approximate price and if you need change or credit cards, how to rent that locker?
Yeah, so there's two prices. There's a smaller and a larger locker. It's $7 for the smaller locker and $10 for the large locker. You can use your card, you can use Apple Pay on your phone. I actually don't think that I'll have to look back. I think I have a picture. I don't think you can actually insert cash. I think it's only through credit card. And at California Adventure, there is a locker right when you walk in to the right. So if you're walking into the park, it's to the right before you get kind of to like the snack area. And then there is also a locker in the Grizzly Peak area right outside the rapids. Same price. I actually think the lockers near Grizzly Peak you can rent for free, I think for an hour. Because I think they're taking into account like you're wanting to take off bulky clothes, knowing you're going to get wet or your ponchos or whatever. So I think I think those are free for an hour in that area.
Okay, great. I do think that counts as cost savings because then you could store a lunch maybe or all your water bottles, and then you don't have to carry it with you and break your back, but you also don't have to spend $5 for a water bottle or $40 for lunch or.
Yes. So thank you for bringing that up because I forgot to mention that. So the picnic area right in the Esplanade area, right outside the main gates of Disneyland, it's I'm trying to think visually. So if you're walking from downtown Disney, it's on the left, kind of near the tram station. If you were walking from the harbor side, it would be on your right past the main gates. So as you mentioned, bringing a lunch. You can bring any food items inside Disneyland as long as they are not in a glass container. And that also includes drinks. I think this is really important for those that have selective eaters, that, maybe you're on a special diet, maybe your child only is going to eat like my son loves jelly sandwiches. I am consciously aware of like, do I want to spend $20 for chicken nuggets, which I know he would eat, knowing also that I can pack some food and we can eat that and save some money. Those lockers in that area are also a little bit bigger. So you can bring like a soft cased cooler and put that in that locker. That's a great like tip. If you need a little bit of downtime, maybe you have a child in the stroller that's taking a nap and you have a toddler, a sensory seeker that needs to like run around a little bit. That picnic area is an amazing space where it's all enclosed, that you can have nap time. You can have your toddler run around. You can have snacks. You can put your, soft case back in that locker. There's a restaurant or restrooms in that area. It's an amazing space to do that. And I think it's underutilized. You can also bring in food from any of the hotel properties. So, at Grand California, there is, I think it is like the Craftsman Lounge. I'm not getting the name right, but they have salads. They have, cold sandwiches that you can just grab and go, that you can also walk from the hotel and bring that into the park. I know it's not really saving a ton of money, but maybe you wanted to eat something a little bit more on the healthier side, or you have a special diet. That's also something to consider. There are ways to save money in bringing food. I mean, think of it. But also you have to think of like, I have been one of those parents, during some of the trips where I've been like, well, it's spring break. We've spent a lot of money to get here. I'm going to try to bring snacks. And then I carry a big bulky bag all day and goldfish is like smashed at the bottom of my backpack. So again, it's like, I think it goes like, is it worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? So think about those things.
That's true too. Yeah, that's true. I do have a video of that picnic area you're describing. So if that can be helpful to someone to learn where that is, I'll link to that also in the show notes. But yeah, have you dealt with special diets at Disney?
Yeah, so my son, yeah, we can talk a little bit about that. Like, I have, and I can share this. So I have an interview where I interviewed an autism dietitian, and she talked about like tips for parents of kids that potentially have ARFID or have more like eating challenges, and tips of how to be successful on vacation. So I'll share that link with you. That's on my channel. But, her like big tips were order food ahead of time using a grocery service. So we talked a little bit about that. Not forcing foods or using it as, hey, if you want a churro, I really want you to eat this chicken strip. You don't ever want to have that kind of negativity around food. Also know like this is a vacation. I think the likelihood that your child is going to maintain this diet on a vacation, or even for an adult, maintain a certain way of eating on vacation is going to be challenging because you're on a vacation. Right. You may also be traveling with a grandparent, and there may be a different style of like, oh, I really want to buy, my grandchild a bag of cotton candy. Yeah. You may have to just give in to that, like it's a vacation. If your child though has a restricted diet, know that there are a lot of safe options inside Disneyland and California Adventure. My son lives on pizza and chicken nuggets. All of those foods are readily available. One of our favorite spots to eat is the Golden Horseshoe and also Stage Door. If we are looking for, kind of a longer rest period, maybe it's a really hot day, maybe it's raining, Golden Horseshoe. But my tip there is one, mobile order your food ahead of time. And also if it is a day that it's hot or it's raining, know that area is going to be packed because that is an inside eating area. So you may want to plan ahead of time and eat maybe at off-peak hours. I think both open at 10:30. So those are really good options. Stage Door, you're eating outside. That's also a good kind of camp out spot. If you're looking to watch Fantasmic, you can find a spot there. You're waiting quite a while, but if you need a seated spot to wait for that nighttime show, you can do that and get food at Stage Door. Pizza is always readily available in the park. There are also restaurants that accommodate like gluten-free if you have an allergy. Know that there are options, but it requires a little bit of planning ahead of time. Also, being familiar with the Disneyland app, going before and scanning the restaurants is going to be very helpful. But if your child maybe requires something, extra or special, or like we talked about, you can bring in like a Tupperware with food and keep it in your backpack, keep it in a locker, use that picnic area. There are a lot of options. I also think it's important to think about areas that you may have more space and that you can sit. Golden Horseshoe, as I mentioned, being one of them. If you like more of like a sit-down meal, we also really like the Plaza Inn. Mm-hmm. There's extra space, not as much inside. It can get kind of crowded inside, but you have that whole outdoor space that's really nice. Also, it's kind of a good area if you need a little bit of space watching fireworks, or maybe you want to watch a parade, but you have a hard time around those crowds. you're going to get a decent view, but no, it's going to be obstructed. And that is a really good spot to do that. And you're mixing a break, a meal, and either a parade or fireworks.
Mhm. Okay, great. And have you ever dealt with the special dietary requests area at Disney?
I haven't because I haven't needed it, but I know that that is available and an option for those that, that need it.
Okay. I dealt with it many, many years ago when I had a special dietary restriction. And so it was amazing. I think um, Disneyland World, any Disney property, it is the best place to be when you have those type of restrictions, because they really do everything that they possibly can to take care of you. And I think there's an email. I'll try and find it and put it in the show notes. But if you do want to sit down at a table service restaurant, you can email ahead of time and let them know where you want to dine, what your reservation time is, what your needs are, and then someone will contact you both ahead of time and then once you get to the restaurant, so you can go over those things. And they'll even make special food for you. They have a special sensitivity kitchen and everything.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
Disney's a really great place for that.
Yeah, we did do the dessert party for dessert party for World of Color for my daughter's birthday. And I went early to check us in and mentioned my son has autism. I asked about what desserts were being offered. They offered to make some special accommodations for seating, for some of the desserts, for the drinks. I think that a lot of people don't realize that you can just ask. Like, there are a lot of accommodations within Disneyland and DCA and the resort in general. So know that things are available. And there's always an option. Now, sometimes, like you're saying, you may need to plan ahead of time, but there's always options.
Showing up and just asking can go a long way as well. Yeah,
totally.
Okay. All right, great. Do you have a list of do's and don'ts or any suggestions? Because I know we're dealing with specific individual needs, so blanketing isn't a great. But is there semi-broad suggestions for do's and don'ts when you're visiting the hotels, the parks,
Yeah. So, I mean, everyone is different. There isn't a one size fits all for every neurodivergent individual or traveling. So I think my do is always do some prepping ahead of time, like we talked about. Understand everyone's goal of the trip. If you have a neurotypical child like I do, she's going to want to go on Matterhorn and she's going to want to go on rides that my son isn't going to want to do. So I think it's really important to set the expectations with everyone before you go on how we're going to divide and conquer, things like that. For me and for my family, we are not rushing around. I think it's really important to check in with people in your party, to just check in to see how they're doing. And maybe not try to jam pack the day, because that brings on so much stress. But you may have someone in your party that's like, I'm game. Let's get up early. Let's rope drop, let's run to all the rides. I think it's just really important to kind of level set of who you're going with. Dress in layers. That's always a do.
Okay.
Bring the things that you need from a comfort perspective is a new. If you know that your child has sensitivities to sound, there are some amazing noise canceling headphones. If your child is older and maybe doesn't like headphones, I can share a link here. There are some loop earbuds, earplugs that are noise reduction that are really comfortable. Think of those comfort items that is going to help your child. That's really important. I would say also in the do category is do it. Go into the trip planning, but it's going to be amazing. it may not look the same as everyone else's, but different isn't bad. You know, there's so much fun to be had in magic of the Disneyland resort. And there's so much for everyone. And that the staff tries to accommodate, you know, like we talked about. There's so much for everyone in terms of like break spots. You know, if you are feeling like overstimulated, we always love to take like a ride around the park on the train. We love to visit Tom Sawyer Island and Pirate's Lair to kind of have a break from the crowds and let the kids run around and run in and out of the caves, or taking a boat ride on Mark Twain just to kind of have some quiet moments. Like, do it and know that it may not be perfect, but again, there's the magic there.
It'll be fun. Yeah, so if those things are those types of things are important to you, it might be good to know ahead of time if they'll be closed, because they do go through refurbishments. So do you want to describe how to find that refurbishment schedule?
Yeah. I mean, you can just find it on the app, right?
You can find it on the app and on the website. I've heard a lot of people say that they tend to find the website is more accurate than the app, but you can find the information both places.
Sorry, you're going to edit this part. So like you can find it up.
We can put a link to it later so that people can find it. We don't need to describe it. I don't think I was prepared for that. You weren't prepared for that, so it's okay.
But I will say, in terms of like some of those things that I mentioned, you know, weather permitting, if it's a rainy day, you're not going to get to go to Tom Sawyer Island. You know, the Mark Twain probably is not going to be running. Also, it's important if you are going in a rainy season to know that like there are several rides that also will be closed, and you know you can find those on the refurbishment schedule if they're closed for refurbishment, or there's also a schedule of rides. Like, consider anything outdoors during the rain will be closed if it is a downpour. And also, if you are going during rainy months, know that you can, even if you're not staying on property, you can visit any of the hotels just for a break. You can go into the Grand California lobby. You can go up to the third floor. There's extra seating there. You know, a lot of people sometimes don't know that you can go and kind of hang out in the lobby. Also at the Disneyland Hotel, there isn't as much, I would say, inside space for breaks. You can go to the new lounge. Is it called the Spellbound Lounge? The name is like,
it is right near Goofy's Kitchen.
It's right near Goofy's Kitchen. That's open later in the day, but there's seating in that area. I mean, there's a lot of places to take breaks also on days that, you know, maybe either rides are closed for weather or refurbishment. At DCA, we really like to go into the Animation Academy and take a break there. We don't always draw, but like we just like to take a break, and we like to watch all of the, you know, little shorts that they play. You can go to Mickey's Philharmonic. I never feel like I say that right. That's I think that show's about 12 to 15 minutes. You can watch that show, but know that show, there's periods of darkness. It's loud. If you have a child that has some like visual sensitivities, that may be a challenge. And also the sound. But yeah, I mean, there's The Little Mermaid. It's 7 minutes of seated air conditioning, you know, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, so going back to the hotels, you mentioned already location is a big one for your family. What else do you look for as far as amenities for the hotel that you stay in?
So I really like to stay at a place that has a restaurant either in the hotel or nearby, even if it's not like a full sit down, if it's some kind of quick service, because it's always nice to kind of have some snacks, you know, going in and out, or if you want to grab some food, you know, my daughter, like a donut when we're walking, you know, in and out. But I also try to, like, as I mentioned, we do a lot of grocery ordering ahead of time to have things in the room. If there's not a restaurant in the hotel, I like to also stay somewhere that there's food nearby. As I mentioned about Cambria, like my son loves the Habit. It's sometimes kind of nice on those like break days or longer periods of breaks outside of the park to grab something. It's a little bit cheaper eating outside the park. So anywhere where you can stay that there's nearby food, I think is helpful. I also look for the close proximity, like we talked about. Safety is a big concern. There's just something comforting for me of staying closer inside that Disney bubble.
Mhm. I get that. I feel the same.
Yeah.
And yeah, going back to the Cambria, there's it's not inside the Cambria, but it shares a parking lot. So really you just walk across the parking lot, and like you said, there's the Habit. I think there's a yogurt shop, there's a Starbucks, there's a fish restaurant and a Mediterranean restaurant. At least last time I was there, there's several options there for food, and there's other hotels in that area too that you could also walk to. I think the Hampton is across the street. The Candlewood, I think
Candlewood.
yeah, and Viv is also not far. I don't know if you could walk, but it's also not far up there. Motel
The one
6 too is over there.
Yeah, the one thing that scares me a little bit about the Viv and walking over there is like you're kind of crossing, there's a really big street, and I think that's the freeway underpass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Another thing is I think that we should talk about is there are people that maybe mix Disney and Universal. So people may be staying further away. Something that's really important and you're seeing probably a lot of now because of the fires is you have to think of where you're staying in terms of like the proximity to airports or areas. Like Disneyland is not in Los Angeles. It is in Orange County. It is 35 to 45 minutes on traffic days, could be over an hour if you're going to Universal. It's important to think about like staying in a location that there's a close proximity to, like, if you're going to go to both, possibly staying in the middle, or you're spending more time at Disneyland, you might want to stay closer to Disneyland. I'm not too familiar with the hotels as you get closer to Universal, but I think it's important just to share there's always traffic and it always takes time. And you're going to look at a map and you're going to say, that's not that far away. But when you are like in traffic, it can sometimes take you an hour and a half to get from Disneyland to Universal. So plan accordingly. You may want to hire a driver. I know there is a driving service, which I can share to you also. That's someone that's local that can help drive you to other destinations if you're not renting a car.
Okay, great. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think the hotel situation near Universal is that great. I haven't covered that though, but that is on the list to start covering what's closer to Universal. I don't know if I'll get to that this year or next year, but
yeah,
it's a little more tricky up there because you're closer to more of the LA items too, like the Walk of Fame and the Hollywood sign, and so gets a little trickier up there. But
yeah.
Do you have a certain story or experience, whether it's good or whether it's bad, that you think could teach someone or just make someone feel better about their planning a trip to Disneyland at a hotel that maybe went out of their way, or maybe like don't do this at a hotel?
Specific to a hotel, like with my kids, as I mentioned, we try to stay on property. Where we kind of failed, and this was not last year, but the year before, 4th of July, I really pushed too much one day, and we really should have gone back to the hotel earlier. And my son just full on had like an emotional meltdown, and those things are going to happen. No, as a parent, it's okay. Like, let your child feel all the feels. My thing is I shouldn't have pushed it. We should have gone back. We shouldn't have gone on those extra rides. um, really follow your child's cues when it comes to taking a break and going back to the hotel. Like, that's really important. But know that things are going to happen and you're not a bad parent. It's okay. And, there's nothing that a break and maybe some food or a good night's rest or a swim at the pool can't fix. And you can always restart again. In terms of hotel like mishaps, I think I haven't had a lot of like specific examples, good or bad, because I think since I go so frequently. But if you are planning a trip and you're unfamiliar with the area, I would say reach out to a travel agent. You may not have to use the travel agent. Reach out to someone, that knows the area, that can guide you through your family and what your family needs to stay in a place that's comfortable for you. Because again, you look at that map and you think everything is so close. And then you get to that hotel and you don't realize that you are not really within walking distance to Disneyland.
Yeah.
And that's important to know. In addition to working with a travel agent, ask your friends, ask people on Instagram that you see that have Disney accounts. I'm always willing to share my knowledge. Know that, like we talked about, like your trip may not look the same as everyone else, but there's still so much fun to be had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I don't know. Are you a travel agent?
Can we edit this part out after? So
hold on. Okay, so you're not a travel agent, but I do have a travel partner, which is Getaway Today, and I know their services are free. So if you do have any questions at all, you can always reach out to them, and they're more than happy to help you. And of course, if you're trying to do it yourself, Kim is more than happy to answer questions. I'm more than happy to answer questions, so you can reach out to us through social media or our email addresses. I know those are out there too as well.
Yes.
Okay, so do you have any final thoughts, maybe things we didn't get to, or anything else you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. I was very long-winded. I'm sorry. I'm very passionate about this topic of Disneyland. I think that, the final thought that I have is, like I've been saying, is like, do it, take a trip, plan ahead of time. Disneyland is amazing. And you can go into it a little bit scared, but there's so much fun to be had. So do it.
Okay, great. Okay, I have one question for me that I didn't prepare you for. But for someone like me who's trying to increase knowledge and awareness of the different hotels, what could I be adding to like my reviews that might help someone with a neuro sensitivity of some kind?
I think it's important to understand the proximity to the parks, how you're going to get there, and what a transition could look like. Giving an idea of whether you're taking a bus, whether you're taking an Uber, and then maybe if you were planning to walk, like I think like what we talked about is understanding how close the hotels are to the park, I think is really important, because I think one of the biggest things when it comes to a child or an individual with, a neurodivergence is those transitions. Am I going to have to walk 35 minutes before I get to security and stand in line with a lot of people that may take another 30 minutes? Those things are really important for people to be like mentally aware of before they're going to go into those situations. So I think that's really important. And yeah, I would say for me, that's the most important, to talk about the transitions and to talk about how long it takes you to get to the park.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I'll try to make sure I'm covering that in my future reviews of the different properties.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Kim, for being with us today. And for the viewers, we will try to get all of those links mentioned. We did mention a lot, but I'll work with Kim after here to make sure that it'll be a long show notes. So you'll have to scroll through to find what you want, but I'll try and label it accurately and clearly so you can find what you need. Again, you can find Kim and her blog and her experiences at neuroadventurestravel.com, as you see on the screen there. And again, I'm Stacey, your Disney hotel lady. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for having me.
Once again, I'm Stacey, your Disney hotel lady. Find us also on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Join the discussion group on Facebook. Subscribe here on YouTube so you don't miss out on our next creator interview. And don't forget DisneyHotelLady.com for all the latest reviews and rankings of Disney area hotels. Coming to you from me, Stacey, your Disney hotel lady. Thanks for watching.